And then after that was the first class, how to uh, create folders with the data sets that we will be working with. Then to set up those these things now, download an Anaconda, which contains the this Jupyter notebook which we are using to perform our tasks. And then after that, in second class, now we talked about loading our data sets from libraries. So, and then when we have pandas and numpys, and we'll also continue with after those ones, we'll also load the datas and started talking about the last class we attended now was data cleaning and inspection. Sorry, inspection and data cleaning. So that is
All right.
where it
Uh,
is.
you have actually spoken well. Shows that you actually study. Okay, so this was the notebook where we did some of those inspection and data cleaning. So I will
Yes, sir.
just run through it just to confirm once again. So this is where we imported all the necessary libraries that are required. And this is where we loaded uh, a CSV data set. And this is where we loaded Excel data set. This is where we also loaded another Excel data set. And this is where we started looking at data inspection method in Python using certain Python attributes and functions. So here we use dossier, which help us to analyze the width and the height of our data, which is known as data frame. So this is where we use dot column, which help us to call out only the headers in our data sets called healthcare. And then this is where we use .info, which help us to analyze all the necessary information pertaining to the data set we are working on. This is where we use is now, which help us to find out if we have missing values within our data set. This is where we use describe, which is another statistical function which envelop most of the basic statistical functions for analyzing your data. Though I told you this does not actually directly fall under data cleaning because it's more of analyzing, giving us some insights from our data. But the reason why I use this because there are also part of those informations we got during data inspection, which can also be derived using during the describe. Then just like we also look at how to exploit those individuals functions within the describe to also derive some important insights from your data set. So this is where I use ordinary count, which help us to count through the values under each of these columns in this data set. Now, this is where we started handling data. So this is data cleaning. We started adjusting certain features in our data set. So this is where we use a function called name to be able to change some headers description. And I told us why that is very necessary because Python does not actually feel comfortable working with headers with space between them without either merging them or adding underscore. As you can see in the case of this space will be a problem to Python. At times, Python will find it difficult to decode what type of data this space is. That is why we have to introduce rename. So in case you are given a data set whereby is beyond what a cell can process, you can rename the headers directly from Python. Then you can see the syntax here. So this is where we applied it. We were able to change blood type to BT. We are also able to change medical condition to MD and so forth. Now this is where we use another data cleaning function called drop now, which help us um, to delete any row or column where you have missing value. You can see this was the original data sets. Now we have it somewhere. So let me just look for the name and call it back. So this was the original data set data 2. So for example, if I type data 2, that will bring out the data closer to where we are. So you can see that this data 2, we have columns where we have NaN, which represents missing value. We have it under age. We also have it under followers. So what you did here, when you apply drop NaN, when you apply NaN, you notice that it removes those two headers where you have missing value, which I just identified now. Age, you have missing value here. Followers, you have missing value. But you can see that when you apply drop now, you have automatically deleted those columns. Are you with me? Are you with me? Please leave your
Yes, sir.
talk in as much there's no background noise so you can
Okay.
respond as soon as possible. Now,
All right, sir.
so that is what I was trying to explain. Now, the next thing we did, the next thing we did, I think that was exactly where we
That was
stopped,
yes, sir.
right? That is where we stopped in
Yes, sir.
our last class. So now, I know I'll really
Okay.
taking us from this particular
Excuse me, sir.
slide. Okay, with you.
That where you were just explaining now,
Okay,
where we have that drop now.
okay,
That listen, though I run with the data that I use, the data set that I use to run my own. I noticed there was no missing value in my own data set.
okay.
So when I run it now, it's run, but no, nothing like that none.
Yeah, it's
So that's to
okay.
show that
That is to
okay,
show that there's no missing
missing
value.
value.
So it is
Okay.
necessary that you don't assume that there's no missing value. It is better you run it, and then when it output nothing, then that gives you an assurance that there is no missing value.
All right.
Okay, so I was actually teaching us from this slide just to confirm again to know if we are done with this slide. So we've done this, we've done this, we've done this, we have done also this, we have done this. Part of what I was just explaining now. We have done
Mm.
this as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is the one I also explained. We've done this. We have done this under this data cleaning. That is where we started renaming some columns using this method. Then we have done this, how to drop missing value in data frame row using this. Okay, that was exactly the one I just talked about now. The how to drop missing value in a data frame column. I don't think we have done this.
Mm.
The syntax will tell us, though
Yeah,
it's
I
an
think we've done it
extension
now.
of, yes, we have done it. Because
We've
I
done
said,
this.
yes, all you need to do if you want to drop values across column, you will just add what? As is equals to 1. Okay, good. This is
Yeah,
exactly where
yes.
we applied it. Okay. I just want to be sure because it has been a while. Then how to fill missing value. Have we done this? We have not.
No, no, sir.
Good. So let's start from here. You can start writing. Now, how to fill missing value. How to fill missing value. Now, what we are actually talking about is supposing you have run this function just as we have it now, and we discover that we have missing value on this data too. You can see that we have places where we have missing value, and you are asked to not to delete them, but to replace them with another value, which could be a constant value. That is where failure comes in. Because when you deleted the age, just because you have missing value, when you also deleted followers because you have missing value, there are implications. The implication is that you deleted the whole column just because of two value.
On record.
These other two value might be important to other form of analysis. Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Good. So that is why there are times you will have missing values like this, and you will be compelled not to delete them, instead to replace them. Now we should know that missing value means uh, 0. It means at the point where the data was actually collected, either through a cell, the particular person, the particular customer, let's say this Harmony, does not have followers or does not have any recorded value. That is what Python has translated to missing value. So which means that we should be seeing any place where Python indicates any N, which represent the missing value, as 0. So what we are going to simply do is to convert all of them to what? 0. So we are going to write
Yeah.
a code that Python will use to trace all the cells where you have missing value and convert them to 0. So that is where you will need this function called fill now. So what is the syntax? The syntax is very simple. The data set name dot the fill now. So let's quickly go to our notebook and apply it. As usual, I'm going to be using comments to explain whatever I am doing, which you should also replicate. Now, what we are learning right now is how to replace missing values with a constant number or string. So now, what is the syntax? What is the syntax? The syntax, like I specified in my slide, the data set name, you concatenate it with the function itself, which is the
Female.
fill now, and then being a function, it must carry the parentheses brackets. And like I have explained before, whenever you open, there are functions that receive arguments. There are functions that does not receive arguments. Like when we run .info, we open the bracket, but we did not supply any what argument or input. But in the case of this, we have to supply a value. If the value you are supplying is a string, Of course, in programming, string means text-based data type. If it is a string, you are going to quote it. Supposing I want to change all the places where we have NaN to prosper, because prosper is a text, it is not a number. I have to quote it, but because it's just a number, we want to replace them with zero. So we don't quote numbers when you are storing them in a variable. So now let's look at the data we want to work on to interpret this syntax. This is the data set data2. Now I want to replace all the places where I have NaN or missing value with zero. So which means I will reference the name of that data set first, concatenate it with what? The fail now, and then pass zero. Now you run it and you see that it will output the data set, and now all the places where you have NaN are now replaced with zero. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I also want you to agree with me that this is not workable data frame, and I will tell you why. Why did I say this is not workable data frame? If, for example, in the course of my analysis, I want to reference this, it does not have a valid variable name that I can use to reference it, just like the way I reference data2 now. So how will you describe it? Because this is not data2. If you call data2 now again now, you will see that it will output the one with the errors. So what we are going to learn right now is how do I store my results in a valid variable, which is a good practice. So whenever you output values that are useful for further analysis, you quickly store them in a variable. All right. All right. So like I was saying, you notice that when I called the DA2, the changes were not affected. So which means that this is just a display output. You cannot, it's not a valid data frame or data set you can work with in the future. So what you do now is that if you want to retain this one, because this is the copy that you are going to analyze, because you cannot analyze this one. This one is assumed to have errors. So this is assumed to be the perfected copy of the data you want to analyze. So once you have gotten that perfected data, you are expected to save it in a different variable. So I will say final, can use any name, final copy or final data equals to, and then you run it. So what I have done now is that I have assigned the correct data set in a variable, so that whenever I want to use it for any analysis, I can always what? Reach out to it with the variable name. Now, if I want to see it, I will simply type what? Final underscore what? Data. So this one will give me the what? The corrected what? Copy. Is that clear?
Wow. Yes, sir.
While if I still type data2, I am still having the raw data. So this is how we work. So you are not expected to delete the raw data after you have done your cleaning. You retain it with a different variable while you store the final one in another variable, because there might be time that you will need the raw data in the course of your analysis. So that is what I just did now, and hope you have documented so that I can continue.
Yes, okay, sir.
Okay, so whatever I am putting here, or maybe you can just follow up later, you watch the video and make your notes. So one of these days I'll check to see your notes. So now
Yes.
let's quickly go back to the slide and check other things. Okay, I think that's brings us to the last data cleaning. Now we are looking at different topic now, which is called data selection method. So there are some techniques we use in picking some part of our data set for certain reasons. So the topic is data selection method. So under data selection method, we have the first topic, which is how to select one header from a data frame. This is very important. How to select one header from a data frame. So what I will simply do is to go there. Let's go back to our analysis notebook. So let me write it. You still remember this. I'm introducing a new topic, so I would like to make it a note. So the topic is what? Data
Selection
selection methods. So remember that I will mark it down. And to mark down is very simple. All you need to do is to press escape, come to this place where you have code, select what? Mark down. If you turn it to green color, then press shift and enter. It will convert it to a note. Shift and enter, it will convert it to a note. Now, so whenever you are introducing a new topic in your notebook, learn to do this so that if I want to access it, it will be easier for me to know where one topic stops and where the other continue. So now, the first task here is how to select a single header from a data set or data frame. So what we are talking about is this. So if I call out that data set we are working with, which is what? Final underscore data. So this calls out all the headers, calls out the name header, the age header, the followers header, the income header down to the. Now, for certain reasons, I want to call out only the name. I want to pull out only the name and store it in a different variable, then call out the income and store it in a different variable. Probably I have a plan. The plan could be that my analysis only focus on name and what? Income. So why am I having this order? So the best idea is to pull them out and join them together to form a different word data set that I can work with directly. So all these techniques are what we want to look at now. Our first under selection, because we are picking. Now, for me to achieve this, from the syntax that I copied, look at the syntax here. From the syntax, like I said, the syntax is the data name, concatenate it with the header name that you want to pull out from that data set. So in this case now, let me make it rain. What are we asked to do? What we are asked to do is, so let me assume this is a salary payroll. This is a sales income data set. So let's assume that in your office, you are asked to pull out what? Name of the customers. So the task is from the sales inventory. From the sales inventory, call out the following headers. Call out the following header and store them in valid variables. Variables. That is the task. So what I'm going to do here, the first one is, remember the syntax, so I will just use this. This is the name of the data set. Then I want us to understand something. If you are calling a header or feature with just one word, What do I mean? Look at this. Name is one word. Age is one word. Followers is one word. Income is one word. But when you get to sign up date, is not one word. And you have not added what? Underscore in between them. When you also look at educational or education level, is also what? Two words. Now, if it is one word header you want to call, like age now, I will just do dots. I'll type what? Age. Once I press enter, it will pull out only what? Age value from that entire data set. Did you understand it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if I want to call out income, now like I told you, the task is that once we have called out the name, we should store it in a variable, just like I did now. So I'll quickly say what? This one is age is equals to. So which means that what? I have stored all the age value inside what? Age variable. So I will now go for the second task. I was also asked to call out what are the following header. Okay, we did not mention those headers. So let's just mention them here. Age is one of them, and then income is another one. So let's say what? Education level is another one we are also asked to call out. So that is for age. So for income, I'll do the same thing, income, to avoid, receiving after I have outputted my value. So I will just start by giving the variable name first. So I'll simply call the name of the data set final underscore data. Then if I try using dots like this, let me copy it to avoid error. Sometimes you just copy, Control C, and then paste where you want it. If you run it, you see it throws error. This is what I was talking about, where you have a header explained with two words or more than two words. So you can see the problem Python is having here is finding it difficult to actually figure out what type of data is in this space. So when you have it like this, you cannot use the dots method. You are going to use the selection method, the square bracket. So what we are going to do is that you call the name of the data set and then you call your square bracket. Now you make it a string by adding it in that quote and then before you paste it. So if I run it now, it will call it. So it's accepted in as much is able to read a value here. So if I want to see the result now, let's say what? To view the results, simply call the data set name. So which is what? Income. So once I call income is not spelled correct. So it's still running or what? Did I? Let me check. Okay. So you have it here. So you have been able to what? To pull them out as well. So what I'm trying to explain here, the difference between using what? Dots and what? Square bracket to select a single column. Is that clear, sir? Is that clear? Please, you have to be prompt to the question so that we can move forward.
Yes, sir.
All right, please.
Yes, sir.
Now,
Sorry, I want to ask. Hello, sir.
I'm with you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, this last page that we just did now, where we have income. Now, if we decided to concatenate now with just put the education, then put underscore, can it display without giving
Yes,
this
yes,
square
yes,
bracket?
yes, yes. That is why data cleaning is very important. If you have done that rename and you have added underscore in between, it will be seen as one header. You understand? It will be seen
Okay.
as one. Yes. So now I just want to, so this is how you can select single. Now, if I want to select two at once, if I want to select two at once, let's say I want to select name, age at once, or age and followers. Let's say I want to select name and income. Now the syntax will be different. So let's quickly look at that. So this is how to select multiple headers values from a given data set. So what we are going to do is that the syntax will be changed. So syntax is, you call the name of the data set final underscore data. Then you open the first square bracket, open another one, just because you want to select more than one. Then you now use the same method, string age, use comma to be separating them, comma, string again. The next one is income. So let's run it this and see. Now let's run it and see. Now you can see that what you have been able to call what two at once. So let's add one more. Let's see how it can work with three headers at once. So let's say I'm bringing name. In fact, let me put here name, put here age, then bring in income. Then let me run it. Okay, so I have three of them selected at once. Now, like I said, I have to save this in a valid variable so that I can always refer to it. So I will say this one could be maybe final, or let's say what, new underscore data equals to, then to output the value, just simply call new underscore data. Now there's an issue here. New data is not, I want you to factor out the error on this. Let me test your debugging skills. What do you think is the error? Though I have seen it, but I want you to tell me why is it outputting this key error saying new data is not defined. Can you quickly unmute and respond to the question quickly?
All right, I think
Now, let me quickly help you. It's part of the skills you need to have. As a programmer, you should be able to know how to debug. Now, look at this here. I said you should always focus on the key error. Forget about those grammar. It is when you find it difficult to decode the key error. That is when you fall back to, okay, let me look at the breakdown of the error. Now, error, name error, name, new. Now, look at your new. The new here is the N is capital letter. The N is what? Capital letter. But the one you are using to output the value is small letter. So that is the mistake. You should be able to see it. So once you run it now, you have your result. Is that clear? I believe that is clear. So that is how to select multiple. That is how to select multiple headers value from a given data set. So all these techniques are techniques you are expected to know as a data analyst. There are several reasons why you may be asked to pull out certain parts of your data set from the entire data frame. So that is why I am exposing us to all this logic so that you don't go back to the root where that was collected and go and delete before you reload the data here. So that is for that. Now let's try something. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but let's just try something. So let's say you have like final underscore data, and then you do dot age, then you do dot income, and then you run it. You see what series object has no attribute what income. So what I'm trying to verify now is when we use selection method, we were able to capture as a square bracket, we were able to capture multiple headers. But if you want to use the dots or the period method, you cannot do that. That is what I just informed you now. Okay, so let's quickly go back to our slides and check what should be the next thing to talk about. So here is how to select header with 2 words or description. That is the one I have just applied now. But remember that if you are writing the syntax, you write the syntax I used there where I nested a square bracket inside the first square bracket so that it will be clearer to you. Now let's quickly look at header slicing. This is another concept of data selection, header slicing. Slicing actually means that you are just like what we achieved with the multiple headers selection. That is slicing. That is what you are selecting across some headers serially. For example, if I could just go back to the data now, if I just call back my final data, final underscore data, and I just run it. So let's say I want to slice, that is, I want to call from name to income. So that concept is actually the same with what we did here now because we actually slice beyond one header. So that is what I'm trying to explain here. Let's see if we can still do it. That is what we have actually done. But remember that we achieved it with nesting a square bracket in another word square bracket. So that takes us away from that. That will take us to this. So that will take us to introduction to exploratory analysis with aggregate functions. With aggregate functions. But I'm not going to go this way. I'll come back to this topic. I want to just take us how you can actually apply some of these concepts of data selection to perform real analysis, where you can use this concept to actually draw meaningful insights from a given data set so that you will not forget. So let me follow that trend. So let me call out my next slide, which talks about data selection, filtering analysis. So this is where you will see some of those things, those techniques we just learned coming to play major roles here. Now, introduction to data selection analysis. Now, let's start with this, what we call data concatenation. You must have been hearing me using this term. To concatenate in data analysis means to join two different data frame or data set together to form a new data frame. There are reasons why you do this as data analyst. They can give you two different data sets that ought to be one, but they were given to you separately. And you must have checked the two data sets that one cannot be fully used for your analysis without the other. So when they give you that kind of data, what you do, you join them together. There are different techniques, there are different methods we are going to use to achieve this. Now, let's quickly look at the full meaning of what is concatenation. So when you concatenate your data, you create a new data set. That is one primary thing you should know. By combining data from separate, distinct sources, which is very, very important. Now, two, you often need to combine data frame so that you can analyze data from a mixture of sources. You can combine data frame using a shared index value by calling this function. So the focus is on this function. So that is the method we are going to use to achieve this. And what is the method? The PD is a Python library which offers us this function called pandas. The concat is the function. Of course, with the bracket, you should know that is a function. Now, I want us to look at these two different data sets that I'm using as an example. Let's assume that this one was given to you first before sending you this. And they have instructed you that these two data sets are supposed to be one, but they made mistake by computing them separately. So how do you join them together? Because they can actually be joined and still mean one data set. So we have first name, we have middle name, we have last name, we have email, we have tag, we have WhatsApp. So these are like the contact information of these students or customers, which goes together with this. Now, if you look at here, this is where I have concatenated them using this syntax. So this is what you should pay attention to now, this syntax. And let me quickly interpret the syntax that help me to join them together and still form a meaningful data set that can be analyzed. pd.concat. You can see this is the concat parenthesis bracket. Inside it, I nested a square bracket. And inside the square bracket, I supply the what? The input, the data the function is to work with. The first one is called combine. The second one is combine 2, just like the way we store age and we store income in two different data frames now. That was the reason why I quickly created those data sets, because I'm going to use them to implement this. Now, why do we have as equals to 1? Now, look at this heading here. Concatenated based on row value. So you can actually concatenate